Hello and welcome to Snow Cones, Tentacles and Elephants Part 5. In this portion we're going to start breaking down some of the pseudonyms and some of the proxies that are used in the various names, some of the semantics that are used in these societies to bring about control and to the manipulation of the masses. We'll start with our lead text for this series, Revelation 17, verses 3 through 5, and it says, "So he carried me away in the Spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations of filthiness of her fornication," this massive system that is in control of global events. Verse 5, "And upon her forehead was written a name, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth." There are many names that are thrown around in the Word of God and in general for the various things that are going on in this world. And sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. But this mystery is at the center of everything. And so as we start to pull on the different threads and pull on the different names and expose these things, we see more and more clearly that this hub, this woman, is the center from which all of these things that are affecting us on our world, in our world, it comes from this particular organization. And so what's in a name? Revelation 12:9, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." That's a lot of names for the same person. And who is this in reference to? Isaiah 14:12 says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning." So this name, Lucifer, the light bearer, the son of the morning, this was his title as he was the representative of the glory of God, the covering cherub. But as he became a deceiver, his name was changed to fit his character. And so dragon, old serpent, devil, Satan, deceiver, these are the names that are his now. He is no longer considered by the government of heaven to be the light bearer, though he still retains that name in secret societies. Strong Concordance, we see Lucifer is from Hallel, in the sense of brightness, and it is the morning star. He is the morning star Lucifer, this bright, angelic, beautiful being that was designed to be the crowning achievement of God's creation of the angels. And of course he has now fallen, and his nature is no longer that of a morning star. In Job 1:7 we read, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it." So this name Satan denotes that he is most certainly a deceiver. His nature has fallen at the time that he was walking to and fro in the earth when he met with the sons of God in this particular verse. And so what is he saying? From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it, he's basically flaunting that he has dominion over the earth. The word Satan is the English transliteration of the Hebrew word for adversary in the Bible. So this is the adversary. This is the enemy. And he was once the light bearer. So he is most certainly now a fallen being. Revelation 9:11 says, "And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." So here's even more names. And what are they? What do these names denote? And if we look in Strong's Concordance, the term Abaddon, we see that it is defined as destruction or ruin. And if we look at Apollyon, we see that it is the destroying one. So is Satan really interested in building a new world order so that he can rival God's government? Yes, in a way, but what he's really doing is he's trying to deceive as many people as possible so that they will be lost and therefore destroyed or caused to perish or be ruined. That is his whole purpose. That is his character now. In Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18, we read, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." So how important then is it to identify who this beast is? The name and the number we need to know. "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man." And we know in the Bible that there is a man who exalts himself above that of the Most High. So this is the characteristics of Lucifer in this organization. And his number is 666. That's 666. One of the names that we see thrown around here on earth is Vicar of the Son of God. And in its Latin form, it is Vicarius Filii Dei. This is incredibly important if we're going to know the name and the number of the beast, and so that we can avoid receiving the mark. What is this all about? Vicarius Filii Dei is a phrase first used in the forged medieval donation of Constantine to refer to St. Peter, a leader of the early Christian church and regarded by the first pope by the Catholic Church. Now, this donation of Constantine is the document that supposedly gives the papal power the ability to rule as the Roman Empire. So therefore you have the Roman Catholic Church. This is the donation of Constantine, the giving of the power from Constantine over to the church. The earliest known instance of the phrase Vicarius Filii Dei is in the donation of Constantine, now dated between the 8th and 9th centuries A.D. John Peter Kirsch states that many of the recent critical students of the document, the donation of Constantine, locate its composition at Rome and attribute the forgery to an ecclesiastic. Their chief argument being an intrinsic one: this false document was composed in favor of the popes and of the Roman Church. Therefore, Rome itself must have had their chief interests in a forgery. Yes, of course, because this gives them all the power. And here's a representation of a papal tiara. After the donation of Constantine, the title Vicarius Filii Dei appeared again in Our Sunday Visitor, a Catholic journal. An article in the April 18th, 1915 issue of Our Sunday Visitor had the following question and answer: what are the letters on the Pope's crown, and what do they signify, if anything? The letters on the Pope's crown are these: Vicarius Filii Dei, which is the Latin for Vicar of the Son of God. And so, is it our place to give ourselves the title of Vicar of the Son of God, or in the place of the Son of God? That title itself is incredibly blasphemous. Let's go on. It says, this has been used by some groups as evidence for the claim that the phrase appears on the papal tiara. However, the writer of the article later withdrew his statements. A rebuttal was mentioned in a 1922 edition of the journal. The Pope claims to be the Vicar of the Son of God, while the Latin words for this designation are not inscribed as anti-Catholics maintain on the Pope's tiara. Well, the Pope actually has a private session in which he gets inaugurated. There's a public session and a private session, and it is said that in this private session, the papal tiara that actually says Vicarius Filii Dei is placed on his head, and he is worshipped as in the place of God, of Christ on earth. And of course, here's a picture of that article from the Sunday Visitor. What are the letters supposed to be on the Pope's crown, and what do they signify, if anything? The letters inscribed in the Pope's mitre are these: Vicarius Filii Dei, which is the Latin for the Vicar of the Son of God. Catholics hold that the Church, which is a visible society, must have a visible head. So this is their king, because he is Vicarius Filii Dei. He is the representation of God on earth. Now, is that true? Is the Pope the representation of the God of God on earth? That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says that you don't need an intercessor, that Christ and you can have a personal relationship. So who would be this person that would interpose themselves between man and God? That almost sounds demonic. That sounds like something that Satan would do, to put themselves in the place of one that you would have to go through in order to reach God. Now, when we dissect the name Vicarius Filii Dei and we ascribe to it the Latin numerical values for the letters, we reach 666. So, of course, here is a man who is taking upon himself the role of God on earth, and this is the number of his name. Do we want to be following this system? More than likely not. We want to avoid this system at all costs, but we need to know what it is in order to avoid it. Here's another name, Pontifex Maximus. This is a coin representing Pope Francis as the Pontifex Maximus. And if we look at the reverse of the coin on the right-hand side of the picture there, we see the IHS, the in his service, Isis Horus Set, representation of the Jesuit symbol, and below that we see the star, and next to that we see the pine cone. That star is very reminiscent to the star that was on the top of the pyramid that is missing the capstone for the Alumbrados, which is the Spanish Illuminati during the time of Ignatius Loyola. And of course we have the pine cone, which is a symbol of fertility. Now nothing on here is a representation of Christ. Yet this is, again, part of their, what they claim, ecclesiastical power on earth. And, of course, the two keys that they can rule heaven and earth. And you have the papal mitre on that, above that. And so this whole thing is very interesting. But what does this have to do with Jesus? Really nothing. Pontifex Maximus, the Pontifex Maximus, Latin for Supreme Pontiff, was the chief high priest of the College of Pontiffs in ancient Rome. So is there a college of pontiffs now? Yeah, of course you have the cardinals and you have the bishops, and of course the Pope is the head of that class. Not only that, but he is the Pontifex Maximus. He is the ruler of the world. Revelation 13, 16, and 17 says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." So the system that is going to be put in place to be able to monitor all the transactions that go on this planet, to stop people from buying or selling lest they go along with this system, is a satanic system. This is the control mechanism, and it is being established. It is being established so that this imposition can be placed on every human being on earth. And of course, how is that coming about? It's coming about through digital currency. Digital currency, where they can monitor every transaction. They can give a time frame for the money that's in your account to be used and what it can be used for. So the anonymity of cash will be done away with. How do we get this system to be implemented at the playout level, at our level, the average person level? Well, you have stuff like this. You have the Amazon One. Amazon One will scan your right hand, it will make an imprint, and you will be able to buy or sell just by waving your hand. Interesting. In August 1st of 1989, in The Sun, which is considered a tabloid, there was this article, "Big Brother's Coming Revealed. Secret plan to tag every man, woman, and child." Is this true? Because this was found in a tabloid magazine. Could it possibly be true? Well, again, take this into account. This is 1989. So at the time that this article came out, if you were to announce this to people, they would say, "You are nothing but a conspiracy theorist. That would never happen here," right? Well, let's look over at some of the underlined portion here. There's a bracketed portion, and it says, imagine if they said there was a vaccine for AIDS. Of course, this is at the time when AIDS was a big issue. People would rush in droves to get the shots. Did we have a crisis where they were offering a vaccine where people were going in droves to get it? The doctors themselves may not even know what they're injecting. But here's this needle. It's a rather sophisticated looking needle. It's thick and looks like it would hurt. But it is designed to inject a RFID chip into a person's hand. So this is again in 1989. Now, did this ever come about? Yes, it most certainly did come about. You can go get RFID chipped right now if you wanted to. Of course, there isn't a mandate for it, but it is most certainly technology that is available. And where do they put it? They put it right in that gap between your thumb and your index finger, right in that space in your right hand. That is their target. So what is this implant? What is this supposed to be about? A human microchip implant is typically an identifying integrated circuit device, or RFID transponder, encased in silicate glass and implanted in the body of a human being. This type of subdermal implant usually contains a unique ID number that can be linked to information contained in an external database, such as personal identification, law enforcement, medical history, medications, allergies, and contact information. So your entire life can be encoded onto this chip. A list of popular uses for this microchip implant are as follows: magnetic implants, contraceptive implants, access cards. Could it be that, we have these EV vehicles where you basically just have like a plastic card that opens the door? What if you had that technology in your hand? Could you open your car door just by waving your hand? How about travel cards and bank cards? It's very interesting. RFID implants of various NFC ISO standards have been used as access cards, ranging for car door entry to building access entry. Secure identity has also been used to encapsulate or impersonate a user's identity via secure element or related technology. So that even with this technology, could they make it appear as if you've done something or been somewhere that you never were? Well, they might very well be able to do that. So it would probably be good to avoid this type of chipping. They can use it for your medical records. Researchers have examined microchip implants in humans in the medical field, and they indicate that there are potential benefits and risks to incorporating the device in the medical field. For example, it could be beneficial for non-compliant patients, but still poses great risk for potential misuse of the device. So this thing can be hacked. Right? They can steal your identity. So this isn't bulletproof, but this is an excellent way, of course, if they controlled all the computer mechanisms and how you would interface with computers, then this RFID chip might be ideal for the powers that be to control a large population. Destron Fearing, a subsidiary of Digital Angel, isn't that interesting? Digital Angel initially developed the technology for the VeriChip. In 2004, the VeriChip implanted device and reader were classified as Class 2 general controls with special controls by the FDA. So this is getting approval. That year, the FDA also published draft guidance describing the special controls required to market such devices. So this is available. You could go get this. About the size of a grain of rice, the device was typically implanted between the shoulder and elbow area of an individual's right arm. Once scanned at the proper frequency, the chip responded with a unique 16-digit number, which could then be linked with information about the user, held on a database for identity verification, medical records access, and other uses. The insertion procedure was performed under local anesthetic in a physician's office. So they just numb up your hand a little bit and inject this into your hand. Privacy advocates raised concerns regarding potential abuses of the chip, with some warning that adoption by governments as a compulsory identification program could lead to erosion of civil liberties as well as identity theft if the device should be hacked. Well, exactly right, because they're not interested in your civil liberties. They're interested in hurting mankind into a slave state. Building access and security. In February 2006, City Watcher Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, became the first company in the world to implant microchips into their employees as part of their building access control and security system. That's right. You couldn't get in the building unless you had one of these chips. The workers needed the implants to access the company's secure videotape room, as documented in USA Today. So this made headlines. In 2006, the project was initiated and implemented by Sigma 6 Security Incorporated. Six Sigma Security Incorporated. Isn't that interesting? There's that number again, 6. The VeriChip Corporation had originally marketed the implant as a way to restrict access to secure facilities such as power plants. A major drawback for such systems is the relative ease with which the 16-digit ID number contained in a chip implant can be obtained and cloned using a handheld device, a problem that has been demonstrated publicly by security researcher Jonathan Westhughes and documented in the May 2006 issue of Wired magazine, among other places. So This is a program that's moving forward, and they're just kind of ironing out the kinks, but it can still be hacked. Could your identity be stolen even with this type of technology? More than likely. Theoretically, a GPS-enabled chip could one day make it possible for individuals to be physically located by latitude, longitude, altitude, and velocity. Such implantable GPS devices are not technically feasible at this time. Well, what's your cell phone? It is a GPS tracking device. So the only difference between the phone and this is the phone is outside of your body and this is inside of your body. Do you think that they could somehow manipulate the technology of a cell phone and put it into a device like this and put that in your body? More than likely. However, if widely deployed at some future point, implantable GPS devices could conceivably allow authorities to locate missing persons and or fugitives and those who fled from a crime scene. We hear so much about human trafficking. Could they inevitably use human trafficking as a reason that we should get these chips so that you can be located and that your children can be located and not sold into some type of slavery? Critics contend, however, that the technology could lead to political repression as governments could use implants to track and persecute human rights activists, labor activists, civil dissents, and political opponents. Criminals and domestic abusers could use them to stalk and harass their victims, and child abusers could use them to locate and abduct children. Well, that's if we somehow have access to scanning devices. But if they don't allow us to have access to that type of computer technology anymore, and we're just chipped, then they can do whatever they want. And so step by step, they get humanity into this position where they accept technology because of the benefits, and they see that the pros outweigh the cons, and so they accept the technology. And what happens? Wherever you go in the world, you can find someone with a cell phone. Most everyone is connected through their cell phones to this system that is being implemented. Now, imagine if they took the cell phone away and they gave you a digital injection instead. You would still be stuck to this grid, even though you wouldn't be able to interface with it as you do with a cell phone. But everybody, from the young to the old, to the very rich to the very poor, everyone has a cell phone. You can even get it on your wrist. Bill Gates said that he wanted everyone to become vaccinated in order for there to be a return to normal. Could this also be using the stair-step method to get people used to the thought of being injected, and injectables are a good thing? What happened during the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, there came out a vaccine and people went in droves to go get that vaccine, much like the article in Sun magazine where they said that if there was a vaccine for AIDS, people would go in droves to get it, and most certainly they did for the coronavirus. And were we being herded into something? Most certainly. Life will not return to normal without vaccines, says Bill Gates, and this was a TBS report on the 13th of July 2020. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft and co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has shared his insight about the present situation as well as the world after the COVID-19 pandemic. In an article published in The Economist, which is a very interesting magazine, especially when it comes to the New World Order. We don't have time to get into that in this series, but that's an interesting magazine. Bill Gates said that he believes humanity will beat it only when most of the population will be vaccinated. I believe that humanity will beat this pandemic, but only when most of the population is vaccinated. Until then, life will not return to normal. Even if governments lift shelter-in-place orders and businesses reopen their doors, humans have a natural aversion to exposing themselves to disease, he said. So here is this thought process. Well, I need to be vaccinated in order for my life to go back to normal. Well, what if they said to you, your life can't go back to normal unless we're able to identify you? And the only way that we can identify you with a absolute degree of certainty is that you have been chipped. Your identity is a part of you. Could that be where this is leading? And of course, you had the major companies putting out vaccines. They were introduced within a year of the COVID outbreak, and everybody seemed to get one, even the very young. It's sad to see because to have a child this young vaccinated with an experimental vaccine shows that the psychological operations of these secret societies has worked very well. That we would put our children on the altar of Molech and think that we're doing the right thing. But the population has most certainly received vaccination, and that is nearly the entire globe. It seems like Africa was lagging behind at the time that article was put out. So we talked about the storing of medical information in this RFID chip, but there's also another technology that they're thinking about using to store medical identification and records on the human body, and this is through a process where they put sugar needles that dissolve in the skin. They put this little patch on you, and when the needles dissolve, it leaves behind an element that can be seen with especially modified light. So this is how they do it, storing medical information below the skin's surface. MIT researchers have now developed a novel way to record a patient's vaccination history, storing the data in a pattern of dye, invisible to the naked eye, that is delivered under the skin at the same time as the vaccine. So this little picture here is showing this is the actual vaccine, and now that you've received it, you receive a mark and showing that you have been vaccinated. The researchers showed that their new dye, which consists of nanocrystals called quantum dots, can remain for at least 5 years under the skin, where it emits near-infrared light that can be detected by a specially equipped smartphone. The research was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Koch Institute Support Corps grant from the National Cancer Institute. So you have these interesting groups that really are pushing for vaccination and the monitoring of the population. Bioluminescence quantum dots. So that's what these little invisible, nearly invisible dots would be that are left behind after you get this type of injection. It's called quantum dots. And what is it? So bioluminescence is widely used for in vivo imaging of nude mice by conjugating, what's that word? Luciferase. That's right, luciferase. Luciferase protein to quantum dots. Bioluminescence resonance energy transfer, BRET, turns these useful fluorophores into a new class of bioluminescence probes. So what are they using? Luciferase. Luciferase is the protein that they're using to create this quantum dot. Cast out of heaven, Satan set up his kingdom in this world, and ever since he has been untiringly striving to seduce human beings from their allegiance to God. He uses the same power that he used in heaven, the same influence of mind on mind, the social pressure to go along. Men become tempters of their fellow men. The strong, corrupting sentiments of Satan are cherished, and they exert a masterly, compelling power. Under the influence of these sentiments, men bind up with one another in confederacies, in trade unions, and in secret societies. There are at work in the world agencies that God will not much longer tolerate. In part 4, we talked about the writing is on the wall. It most certainly is. And now we're starting to see a little bit more of the detail and where that gets to our level, what is considered the wild by these elites, is the level that we live in. The way that you interact with your work and your school and the people around you, this is considered the wild, and they are wanting to suppress and control every single person. And they want this system in place rapidly, and as they are moving forward and moving rapidly, God is working to draw men away from this system and to allow them to see what is happening. How many people are awaking to the fact that there is something going on in the world, even if they are unable to identify exactly what it is? But there is something happening, and this is where we're going. Here's another name, the Sons of Light. The Sons of Light. And it's very interesting because in the Bible we are told that we should be the light of the world, and that is the representation of the God's character to those around us, and preaching the word, the gospel, and allowing people to have light shine into their minds through the word of God. But there is a counter to that. And here we have the Sons of Light. Freemason. According to Gerald Massey, the foremost Egyptologist, in his book, The Gerald Massey Lectures, he states, the name Freemason is derived from the ancient Medu-Neter Freemason, meaning child of the sun, or Herumez, meaning child of the light or day. And of course, we know that when they're talking about the light or the sun, that they're worshiping the light and the sun in the Luciferian sense, that it is the light that has given them civilization and knowledge. And so this mindset of the children of light, does that carry any prominence in today's world? Well, we have the term Freemason, right? And what does Freemason mean? And we can find these definitions in this book, which was compiled from the writings of Albert Mackey, who again was a 33-degree Freemason. And this was put together by E.R. Johnston, who was a 32nd-degree Freemason. And of course, what's the little symbol there? That we have the torch, the light, Lucifer, the light bearer. Again, in this book, it references the Knights Templar with the cross of John the Baptist. So they say, of course, that's Lucifer, and the York Rite, the highest order of the York Rite. And of course, when you're at the highest order of the York Rite or the Scottish Rite, you can become a Shriner. That's right, you can drive around in a little car with a fez. The average Mason, after taking his degrees in Masonry, immediately asks himself what it all means. Few Masons have or will take the time to make an exhaustive study of Masonry. It is to this class of busy Masons this work will make an especial appeal. We have culled from the writings of many eminent Masonic scholars the meat of the subject and present it in such a form that the busy Mason can get what he wants without the necessity of extensive reading or study. So thank you so much for compiling these things so that we can actually take a look at them for ourselves. There are thousands of Masons who can repeat the ritual but who have no conception of what it all means. There is nothing said in the ritual that should seem mysterious. Everything in Masonry has a beautiful meaning if rightly understood, and everything done in the ritual work is meant to teach a distinct moral lesson. What kind of morality are we talking about? We're talking about the Luciferian morality. So if we look at the index, we see children of light. In topic 183, it says, as true Masons, from what do we stand redeemed? If we look further into the article, this is what it says. Children of light, remembering the wonder of the beginning, we, claiming the auspicious countenance of heaven on our virtuous deeds, assume the figure of the sun and moon as emblematical of the great light of truth discovered to the first men, and thereby implying that as true Masons we stand redeemed from darkness and are to become the sons of light. So what are they saying? Well, they're talking about in the beginning. Well, what happened in the beginning? Satan convinced Eve to eat the fruit, and they ate the fruit, and then it was said by God that now they know good and evil. And so that, what does that mean? That Lucifer is the hero who has redeemed man from the darkness that they represent as God into the light which they represent as Lucifer. So these are the sons of light, the sons of Lucifer. Acknowledging in our profession our adoration of him who gave light unto his works. Again, this is, if you go by the meaning through the Greek definition of Prometheus and representation of Prometheus, he gave man civilization and awareness and all these types of things. And so that's what they're saying here, that this is the representation from which we have gained our intellect and our society. If we look in the Encyclopedia of Freemasons by A.G. Mackey, we can look up what it means to be a child of light here as well. This is an old book, copyright 1884. And it's, of course, by Albert Mackey, yours fraternally, he says. On page 469, we see the definition of the word light. And if we look a little bit closer, it says that Freemasons are emphatically called the sons of light because they are, or at least are entitled to be, in possession of the true meaning of the symbol, while the profane or uninitiated who have not received this knowledge are, by a parity of expression, said to be in darkness. Now, what did Albert Pike say? He said that these symbols are intentionally designed to deceive the initiates, but those who are adepts know that when they talk about the light, they're talking about the light of Lucifer. Lucifer. So this is the definition. So what are they saying? They are the sons of light. They are the new adepts, as it were, of this secret, mysterious order that is controlled by the Jesuits. Isaiah 5:20 says, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." It is a horrible thing to call God evil and Lucifer light. That is just unbelievable. But this is what they believe, and it is also Kabbalistic to reverse the order that God is actually evil and that Satan is actually good. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, we mentioned her earlier as being one of the highest occultist sources, and she herself said that the Masons and these other secret societies are offshoots of the Jesuits. So who is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky? She is often known as Madame Blavatsky, and she was a controversial Russian occultist, philosopher, and author who co-founded the Theosophical Society in 1875. She gained an international following as the leading theoretician of theosophy, the esoteric movement that the society promoted. And what is theosophy versus theology? Well, theosophy is actually the study of the satanic doctrines versus theology, which is the study of typically Christian doctrines. And of course, here we have an interesting depiction. This is the inaugural certificate from Blavatsky as she was inducted into the Freemason Lodge, and so this is her being received by them, which is interesting because isn't it typically an all-male group? Well, yes, but she was a channeler, and she was channeling Awasa, which was a spirit that claimed to be an ascended master, and that was from Tibet. And this master was channeling through her, so because of that, she was allowed to become a Mason and recognized as Brother Mason. And we have some interesting depiction. We have the obelisk here. We have the sun and the moon and the stars, and we have the bird that is feeding its young through by tearing its own flesh, and we have the rise of the phoenix, and these are the emblems that are on the obelisk here. And of course, this is all representations of Lucifer, because they believe that Lucifer is the one who is going to die for our sins, if that makes sense, because he sinned, he brought us to sin, and now he is going to die. But he was actually, according to their philosophy, the hero who brought us light and civilization and intelligence. And so it's a very, very blasphemous system. But she is indeed a part of it. And what does she have to say? Modern Masonry is undeniably the dim and hazy reflection of primeval occult Masonry, of the teaching of those divine Masons who established the mysteries of prehistoric and pre-Diluvian temples of initiation. So she is recognizing that these mystery schools existed before the flood, raised by truly superhuman builders. So these philosophies, these mystery schools, she is recognizing as coming from a higher source than man, which would be the superhuman builders, which of course is what? The fallen angels and Satan. So this representation, these mysteries that Masonry is reflecting are the practices of the people who existed before the flood and why the world was destroyed. The Theosophical movement includes all efforts to lead to human freedom and enlightenment. Well, what enlightenment? Masonry has played and is still playing an important part in the world. For instance, its main idea is the brotherhood of man, even though in a limited and restricted sense. Second, Masonry debars from its lodges all considerations of politics or religions, recognizing those to be the greatest provocatives of dissensions. Third, it is the implacable enemy of religious intolerance. It was through Masonry and Masons that the United States of America was made possible. Is that true? Well, there most certainly is a connection, because even George Washington was a Freemason, and most everyone who signed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were Freemasons. Does that mean mean that they were a part of this satanic order? Not necessarily, because it was in the Freemasonic lodges that they could actually hold their secret meetings to talk about creating a government outside of England. So there was a place for it. But as time has gone by, and we know that people who are high initiates are actually worshipers of Satan, well, what are the people who are at the lower levels? Do they even know? Of course not. They're completely ignorant of that. And for most people, it is just simply a businessman's club. It is a great place to network and to create bonds for business and have business relations. And so most people have no idea what this actually entails. So what is theosophy? Theosophy is a religion established in the United States during the late 19th century. It was founded primarily by the Russian immigrant Helena Blavatsky and draws its teachings predominantly from Blavatsky's writings. Categorized by scholars of religions as both a new religious movement and as part of the occultist stream of Western esotericism, it draws upon both older European philosophies such as Neoplatonism and Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism. And when you look at their symbol here, you see those things. And what else do you see? You see the serpent eating its tail. You see the swastika. You see what is considered the Star of David. You see the Ankh. Ankh. Could this be a representation of that pagan religion that came out of Egypt, which is a representation of the religion that existed before the flood? Of course it is. That's exactly what these symbols are saying. As presented by Blavatsky, theosophy teaches that there is an ancient and secretive brotherhood of spiritual adepts known as the Masters. There is this group of ascended masters that have reached the level of human divinity. And this is what they say evolution is actually bringing us to, and that these religions are designed to do, is to open this what is referred to sometimes as the third eye or the higher self. And so what is Christ in this? In these teachings, Christ is nothing more than a human being that has ascended. And so there is no divinity, there is no God in heaven, none of that. There is just ascended masters. And so that's what this belief system is that in humanity is the spring from which we can become more than human. Let's see, known as the Masters, who, although found across the world, are centered in Tibet. These masters are alleged by Blavatsky to have cultivated great wisdom and supernatural powers, and these theosophists believe that it was they who initiated the modern theosophical movement through disseminating their teachings via Blavatsky. So they were channeling through her. They believe that these masters are attempting to revive knowledge of an ancient religion once found across the world, and which will again come to eclipse the existing world religions. Now we know that Satan is coming to impersonate Christ, and so what's going to happen is that he is going to seek to initiate a new higher form of religion in which people will begin to have their divinity, the innate divinity of humanity will come out. And of course, this is what they believe. This is not what I believe, but this is what they believe. Theosophical groups, nevertheless, do not refer to their system as a religion. Theosophy preaches the existence of a single divine absolute. So you can reach this point in which you become like God. You are a God in your own right. It promotes an emanationist cosmology in which the universe is perceived as outward reflections from this absolute. So what you see is actually a reflection of what is inside you. This is what they say. Theosophy teaches that the purpose of human life is spiritual emancipation and claims that the human soul undergoes reincarnation upon bodily death according to the process of karma. It promotes values of universal brotherhood and social improvement, although it does not stipulate particular ethical codes. So this doesn't really have a morality except for what's your truth. We hear that in today's world. What's your truth? And to bring together humanity under this umbrella. This is, again, that system which is to counteract what God had put in place, which is that we should not be all thinking the same thing and doing the same thing, which is individuality, but they want collectivism. This is bringing everybody into a cohesive whole. Theosophy was established in New York City in 1875 with the founding of the Theosophical Society by Blavatsky and two Americans, Henry Alcott and William Quan Judge. In the early 1880s, Blavatsky and Alcott relocated to India, where they established the Society's headquarters at Adyar, Tamil Nadu. Blavatsky described her ideas in 2 books, Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine. She was repeatedly accused of fraudulently producing purportedly supernatural phenomena, often in connection with these masters. Following Blavatsky's death in 1891, there was a schism in the society, with Judge leading the Theosophical Society in America to split from international organization. Under Judge's successor, Catherine Tingley, a theosophical community named Lamaland was established in San Diego. The Adar-based society was later taken over by Annie Besant, under whom it grew to its largest extent during the late 1920s before going into decline. The theosophical movement still exists, although in much smaller form than its heyday. It's simply just transformed. The writings of Blavatsky and Alice A. Bailey and some of these other occultists have literally just been absorbed into the Lucius Trust, and we'll get into more of that later. Theosophy played a significant role in bringing knowledge of South Asian religions to Western countries, as well as encouraging cultural pride in various South Asian nations. A variety of prominent artists and writers have also been influenced by theosophical teachings. So now we see these teachings and how they begin to be disseminated throughout the world. Theosophy has an international following, and during the 20th century had tens of thousands of adherents. Theosophical ideas have also exerted an influence on a wide range of other esoteric movements and philosophies, among them anthroposophy, the Church Universal and Triumphant, and the New Age. Now that is where we're going, this new age, this new religious order. And we're going to see how important this is, especially as it's going to play out in the climax of Earth's history. Theosophy presents a more sophisticated and complex cosmology than spiritualism, although coming out of the same general milieu. H.P. Blavatsky developed a highly original cosmology according to which the human race, both collectively and through succession of individual reincarnation and spiritual evolution, passes through a number of root races, beginning with the huge ethereal and mindless Polarian or first root race through the Lemurian, the Atlantean, and our present Aryan race. Does that sound familiar? This will give rise to a future post-Aryan sixth root race of highly spiritual and enlightened beings that will arise in Baja California in the 28th century, and an even more sublime seventh root race before ascending to totally superhuman and cosmic states of existence. So we are just simply passing through and evolving and evolving and evolving. And it's interesting to note, because she talks about this original Polarian race. They were huge, but they were mindless. Well, what race of human was huge? Well, we know that before the flood, things were not as they are now. After the flood, things were radically changed. But before the flood, when things were in its still pristine, near creation condition, everything was huge. Human beings were huge, but they most certainly were not mindless. They were incredibly intelligent, and we read that in one of the previous studies. Blavatsky's ideas were further developed by her successors such as C.W. Ledbetter, Rudolf Steiner, Alice A. Bailey, Benjamin Creme, and Victor Schumann, each of whom went into huge detail in constructing Baroque cycles of rounds, races, and subraces. Now, we're not going to get into all that, but we are going to talk about Alice A. Bailey and Benjamin Creme as this series goes on, and how and what important role they play in developing these philosophies and disseminating them into the world, and therefore herding man into a particular mindset. If you don't have God, then that leaves you wide open to believe these lies. And of course, with the New Age, we don't have a Jesuit too far behind, because of course all these things are being inspired by satanic agencies and fallen angels. And so of course there's going to be a link between those agencies that are linked with the devil, and that, of course, that represents the Jesuits and the organizations that they control. So here we have Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit. He was a French Jesuit priest, scientist, paleontologist, theologian, philosopher, and teacher. He was Darwinian in outlook and the author of several influential theological and philosophical books. Now, isn't that a contradiction in terms to be a quote-unquote Christian priest, but then be be Darwinian? Well, not if you understand that the evolution one of the key lies that was told in the Garden of Eden. It falls right under the category where Satan said, ye shall be as gods and ye shall not surely die. We simply evolve, we don't really die, we reincarnate, and we go through this several times. Teilhard, who was a Jesuit paleontologist who played an important role in the discovery of Peking Man, presented a teleological view of planetary and cosmic evolution, according to which the formation of atoms, molecules, and inanimate matter is followed by the development of the biosphere and organic evolution, then the appearance of man and the new sphere as the total envelope of human thought. According to Teilhard, evolution does not cease here, but continues on to its culmination and unification in the omega point, which he identifies with Christ. So we see that these ascended masters' teachings and this belief system coming from this Jesuit are in harmony. And what is he doing? He's simply re-echoing the belief system of the Alumbrados that said you will eventually be as God, that you can't even sin in that state, no matter what you do. Teilhard has had a profound influence on the New Age movements and has been described as perhaps the man most responsible for the spiritualization of evolution in a global and cosmic context. So here we have this plethora of false prophets trying to bring about the idea that the individual does not die, we simply evolve and reincarnate. Teilhard's quote on likening the discovery of the power of love to the second time man will have discovered the power of fire was quoted in the sermon by the Most Reverend Michael Curie, presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church during the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Isn't that interesting? So that quote comparing the discovery of the power of love to the power of fire. Who gave us the fire according to the philosophies? Prometheus, the Lucifer character in the Greek philosophies, is the one who gave us fire. So who is he saying is pivotal in this belief system? This is a Luciferian doctrine. It's just being disguised. Teilhard has been posthumously praised by Pope Benedict and other eminent Catholic figures, and his theological teachings were cited by Pope Francis in the 2015 encyclical Laudato Si. Now, isn't that interesting? Because Laudato Si is the launching pad, essentially, of the Agenda 21 Sustainable Development Goals that are being pushed around the world. And he is being quoted in that encyclical by Pope Francis. Amazing. The development of humanity has operated through the appearance, multiplication, and extension of a scattering of semi-independent cultural patches on the continental surface. So what is he talking about? He's saying, look, humanity is developing in all these different groups. Now we know that those different groups originated at the Tower of Babel, and because their language was confused, then they went off and they decided to have cultural patches on the continental surface of the earth. And up to the most recent times, one can say that between these different patches there still lay some free tracks, or at least loose articulations. That's right. So there are loose associations between these groups, but at one time they were all one, right? Because they were building the Tower of Babel. So what does he say? But now, by a generalized peripheral fusion, so some outside force, the system has suddenly become one. So it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, you're now one. You're becoming part of this collectivist mindset. Economically and spiritually speaking, the age of civilizations has ended, and that of one civilization is beginning. What did George Bush, the Skull and Bones president, say? Now we see a new world order coming into view. So these, quote, prophetic insights that these individuals have had, from Blavatsky to Teilhard de Chardin and so on, of bringing humanity into one civilization, is actually the culmination of the satanic plan to bring all of humanity back into a generalized, cohesive unit to defy the government of God. This is the rebirthing of the Luciferian order. At what then do the Jesuits aim? According to them, they only seek the greater glory of God. But if you examine the facts, you will find that they aim at universal dominion alone. That's where this is coming from. This is a satanic organization, and it links up well with other satanically inspired organizations, especially when it comes to Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and the Masons and the Theosophy Society. Shortly after Helena Petrovna Blavatsky had her writings, those writings inspired Alice A. Bailey and her husband Foster Bailey. So who is Alice A. Bailey? She was a writer of more than 24 books on theosophical subjects and was one of the first writers to use the term New Age. New Age. So where does the New Age come from? It comes from these satanic Luciferian belief systems. Bailey was born Alice Latrobe Bateman in Manchester, England. She moved to the United States in 1907, where she spent most of her life as a writer and a teacher. Bailey's works, written between 1919 and 1949, describe a wide-ranging system of esoteric thought, covering such topics as how spirituality relates to the solar system, meditation, healing, spiritual psychology, the destiny of nations, and prescriptions for society in general. So her writings cover every single aspect of life on Earth. She described the majority of her work as having been telepathically dictated to her by a master of wisdom, initially referred to only as the Tibetan or by the initials DK, later identified as Dua Kul. Her writings bore some similarity to those of Madame Blavatsky and are among the teachings often referred to as the ageless wisdom. So where did this come from? She was a channeler who was receiving these communications from a spirit calling itself Dua Kul. Do we see the satanic agenda here? Though Bailey's writings differ in some respects to the theosophy of Madame Blavatsky, they have much in common with it. She wrote on religious themes, including Christianity, though her writings are fundamentally different from many aspects of Christianity or any other Orthodox religions. Her vision of a unified society included a global spirit of religion different from traditional religious forms and including the concept of the Age of Aquarius. So this is getting rid of the old order of belief systems in the old order of God and the Bible. This is bringing in a new, quote, enlightened spiritual religious order. In Morals and Dogma, we read, the true name of Satan, the Kabbalists say, is Yahweh, which is God reversed, for Satan is not a black god, but a negation of God. For initiates, this is not a person, but a force. Isn't that what she just said? That she is bringing in a religious form of the Age of Aquarius. This is a spiritual force. Through spiritualism, Satan appears as a benefactor of the race, healing the diseases of the people and professing to present a new and more exalted system of religious faith. But at the same time, he works as a destroyer. Isn't that his name? Apollyon. He is the destroyer from the bottomless pit, seeking to destroy as many as he possibly can. And how does he do that? He turns the minds of humanity away from the things of God and presents them a new and exalted system of religious faith. That is what is happening, and that is what is being brought about. Now, I mentioned earlier the Lucis Trust has basically become the repository for these types of writings. The Lucis Trust is a non-profit service organization incorporated in the United States in 1922 by Alice Bailey and her husband Foster Bailey to act as a fiduciary trust for the publishing of 24 books of esoteric philosophy published under Bailey's name, and to fund and administer activities concerned with the establishment of right human relations. So this is a completely new order. These include the Arcane School, a school for esoteric training, World Goodwill, Triangles, a lending library, the Beacon magazine, as well as the publishing company. Now, the Beacon magazine, do you remember when we talked about Alexandria, how it had the lighthouse of Alexandria, the beacon, the light bearer, and they also had the Library of Alexandria, which was the repository for all the esoteric teachings of that time. Well, isn't it interesting how this is mimicking, in a way, those very same things? The objectives of the Lucis Trust, as stated in its charter, are to encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, science, and art, to encourage every line of thought tending to the broadening of human sympathies and interests, and the expansion of ethical, religious, and educational literature, to assist or to engage in activities for the relief of the suffering and for human betterment, and in general, to further worthy efforts for humanitarian and educational ends. What was one of the means that the Jesuits want to use to reach people? Of course, through the universities and through the schools. And what are they promoting? These very same Luciferian teachings. The Lucis Trust Publishing Company was founded in the early 1920s as the Lucifer Publishing Company. But what's in a name? The Lucis Trust says that the name was probably chosen to honor Lucifer. You think? The name was changed in 1925 to the Lucis Publishing Company. In Latin, Lucium Fere means to bear light, and Lucis means of light. The company has headquarters in New York City, London, and Geneva. So isn't that interesting? The sons of light, and here we are, they're talking about bearing the light bearer. Isn't it interesting how they use these semantics with these words, but what they're actually talking about is the bringing about of the Luciferian doctrine into the public sphere. The trust is established in Great Britain under the title Lucis Trust Limited, in Switzerland as Lucis Trust Association. In the Netherlands also, the Lucis Trust runs a blog, World Goodwill, which focuses on defining new sustainable development goals for humanity. So where does these sustainable development goals come from? It comes from Luciferian doctrines. That's where it comes from. The Lucis Trust, this is their website. And of course, what's their symbol? It's the pyramid. And of course, you have a cross on the inside. There's all kinds of symbols going on there. But the Lucis Trust, of course, is a satanic organization. It is a Luciferian organization. And what is their motto? Let the plan of love and light work out. In other words, they have a plan. Just like we read that Satan is a general who gives plans and is orchestrating all of these institutions to bring about a condition so that he can represent Christ to the world and be accepted. That's what this is all about. The Lucis Trust is dedicated to the establishment of a new and better way of life for everyone in the world based on the fulfillment of the divine plan for humanity. Now, they're not talking about the Bible. So what do they consider divine? It's anything Luciferian. Its educational activities promote recognition and practice of the spiritual principles and values upon which a stable and interdependent world society may be based. So what is the foundational principles that this world society would be based on? The Luciferian doctrine. The esoteric philosophy of its founder, Alice Bailey, informs its activities, which are offered freely throughout the world in 8 languages. The Lucis Trust was established by Alice and Foster Bailey as a vehicle to foster recognition of the universal spiritual principles at the heart of all work to build right relations. So in other words, this we hear about global relations and the Council on Foreign Relations, this relating with people. Well, what are they talking about? Well, what is Satan's MO? To use mind upon mind. So as people bring in and adopt these policies, they then take it to their groups that they associate with, and they promote these things. And so you begin to have a world coming into harmony with these particular philosophies, because the people who are promoting that are prominent men of renown. The trust was incorporated in the state of New Jersey, USA on April 5th, 1922. A separate limited company, Lucis Trust Limited, was established as an educational charity and incorporated in the United Kingdom in 1935. And in 1951, Lucis Trust was established as a legal entity in Switzerland with an office in Geneva. A publishing company initially named Lucifer Publishing Company was established by Alice and Foster Bailey in the state of New Jersey, USA in May 1922 to publish the book Initiation Human and Solar. Under what name? The Lucifer Publishing Company. Does it get any more clear? The ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light to the world. Is that what that myth is about? Isn't that Prometheus? They're confused. The ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light to the world. Is that the truth? And it is assumed that the name was applied to the publishing company in honor of a journal which had been edited for a number of years by Theosophical founder H.P. Blavatsky. So she was actually publishing her writings under the name Lucifer. It soon became clear to the Baileys that some Christian groups have traditionally mistakenly identified Lucifer with Satan. But that's his name. He's no longer Lucifer. He's no longer son of the morning. He's no longer the light bearer. He bears darkness and death. because he is the great adversary, and that's what Satan means. And for this reason, the company's name was changed in 1924 to Lucius Publishing Company. But what's in a name? So what does Lucius represent? Of course, Lucifer. Over the years, headquarters offices in New York, London, and Geneva have moved locations a number of times. And this just goes on to say that the Lucius Trust is located on an office building overlooking the United Nations. So what influence do they have then? What influence do they have then? Where was the repository at the Library of Alexandria? It was in a place where it could easily be disseminated from that location to the entire world. Well, isn't that also the point of having it this close to the United Nations? Isn't the entire world and their representatives coming to that particular building and organization? Aren't they being influenced by these people? Absolutely. This is a picture of the United Nations with the various flags outside. And this is a picture of the inside of the United Nations, and we see this representation of gold. There is gold everywhere. What was it that Nebuchadnezzar did when he had the dream about the statue with the various metals? Didn't he make a statue of all gold because of his arrogance and pride and force the people to bow down to it? So what is this here? This is a representation of that gold that was the head of the statue. The United Nations manifesting the vision of the one humanity. What is that? What does this title mean? Well, I hope we will get some sense of this by taking a brief look at the way the UN emerged and how it performed some of its most important work, namely the preparation and implementation of declarations and conventions. Now, again, this is from the Lucius Trust. This is what they're saying the UN is all about. They are inextricably linked to the United Nations. They are the spiritual underpinning of the United Nations. To start, let's take a look at the image of the United Nations General Assembly chamber. Behind the dais, the golden background is suggestive of a stream of energy. What would they say about Lucifer? That he doesn't exist, that he's a form of energy, that he's a force. Suggestive of a stream of energy from on high. From where? On high. Who do they consider on high, though, if they flip everything upside down? So this is energy from Lucifer. It certainly seems appropriate imagery for a spiritual sanctum. And the Bailey books point to the thought that the General Assembly can be considered a sanctum of the avatar of synthesis. Avatar of synthesis. Ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos, or thesis versus antithesis equals synthesis. The avatar of synthesis, the bringing together of humanity, who is particularly associated with the United Nations. That's what it's all about. That's what the underpinning of the United Nations is all about. Now, here's a quote from the books which connect the conference theme of initiation with the vision which the United Nations is seeking to present and manifest. The race as a whole stands now at the very entrance into the path of discipleship. Of who? The racial gaze is forward to the vision, whether it is in the vision of the soul, a vision of a better way of life, or an improved economic situation, or of better interracial relationships. That this vision is oft distorted, that it is materially oriented or only partially seen is sadly true. But in some form or another there exists today an appreciable grasp of the new and desirable by the masses, a thing hitherto unknown. So what's going on? The masses are being conditioned to accept this belief system. In the past, it was the intelligentsia or the elect who were privileged to have this vision. Today, it is the mass of men. So what is happening with these symbols and mysteries? These are being promoted into the public sphere so that people will begin to adopt these things as an alternate to the Christian interpretation of historical events through the Bible. So here we have what is called the meditation room inside of the United Nations. Now, the Lucius Trust is the ones who maintain the meditation room inside of the United Nations. This is a triangularly shaped room that kind of has the capstone removed at the end there. That's where this picture is. And, of course, there's lots of shapes and dark and light and a lot of stuff going on there. But this is the meditation room inside of the United Nations. It's a little bit better view. And there's this black stone that is there on the floor of the of this meditation room. It's a type of an altar. Do you remember the altar that was at the base of Molech in the Bohemia Grove? It's very similar to that. In the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, we have a representation of Lucifer. There is, in this movie, these two classes of apes that war and have a competition over a watering hole. One group is exposed to this obelisk, and there's the sound of bees, which is a representation of collectivism, and spurred on, a group of these apes touches the obelisk, and when they touch the obelisk, they begin to have the knowledge of eating meat and to wage war and to kill, and that is seen as an evolutionary leap in the right direction. But what this is actually what it's actually depicting is the murder of Abel by Cain. And so it's very interesting how this is told. 2001: A Space Odyssey. And of course, this is a movie that was put out by Stanley Kubrick based on the writings of Arthur C. Clarke, both of which must have been initiates, because the symbolism that is put into 2001: A Space Odyssey is absolutely blatant if you understand the mystery school symbolism. If not, then the movie is very confusing. The World Goodwill, the blog that the Lucius Trust has put out, Goodwill, Ethical Responsibility, and the Sustainable Development Goals, the challenge of this century. So this is where their focus is. They want to have these Sustainable Development Goals in place. Why? Because it's order out of chaos, remember? So they have to destroy the old world, the old order. They need to make it seem archaic and unfunctional and bring it to a disastrous end so that they can bring about an era of enlightenment with these ascended masters and these exalted ways of being. The United Nations headquarters in New York has a so-called meditation room dedicated to silence in the outward senses and stillness in the inner sense. The New York Silent Room was initiated by the Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld, who said of this room, "We want to bring back in this room the stillness which we have lost in our streets and in our conference rooms, and bring it back in a setting in which no noise would impinge on our imagination." Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who will leave office at the end of this year, of course this is when this article was written, began his first day in office in 2007 by visiting the meditation room. So that was what we did when he first got there. Here in Geneva, such a room is as yet absent, but for the coming project of the renovation of this United Nations compound, a request has been launched to include a silent room at the Geneva headquarters. So they want to have this meditation room, this honor of Lucifer, in all of the United Nations headquarters. Goodwill is one of the most basic spiritual qualities of the human being and the great untapped resource at the heart of every human community. This energy, potentially a powerful force for social change, yet its power remains largely unrecognized and underutilized. World Goodwill fosters understanding of this energy and the role it is playing in the development of a new humanity. So this is a new humanity under the order of Lucifer. It is the sacred principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter to which the American people will henceforth pledge their allegiance, said this bonesman, this former president, George Bush. Isn't that amazing? What principles? No, thank you. I'm not interested in the Luciferian principles of the United Nations, and I will most certainly not pledge allegiance to them. In the Lost Keys of Freemasonry, we read, when the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mastery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands, and before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. Isn't that what we just read? So these secret societies are all believing and following the same order, and that is the Luciferian doctrine, that he will become prominent and that he will be the one who is the benefactor of the human race. So speaking of light, we have this interesting article. Lucifer, instrument helps astronomers see through darkness to most distant observable objects. No, those aren't horns in the upper right. And of course, that's the picture that they're talking about. Courtesy of Lucifer. This is from Popular Science. This image depicts a stellar nursery in the Milky Way about 8,000 light years from Earth. Such clouds are typically opaque to visible light, but infrared light can penetrate them. The Lucifer instrument helps telescopes see that light. Remember we talked about the owl that is the representation of Lucifer, a predator that can see in darkness? Well, here we have a telescope named for that very thing. The Lucifer instrument helps telescopes see that light. The E and the N signify east and north. A new instrument with an evil-sounding name is helping scientists see how stars are born. Lucifer, which stands for, deep breath, Large Binocular Telescope Near-Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research, is a chilled instrument attached to a telescope in Arizona. And yes, it's named for the devil, whose name itself means morning star. But it wasn't meant to evoke him, according to spokesman for the University of Arizona, where it is housed. So, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. We'll just call it Lucifer. Are you serious? Didn't we read that Lucifer loves to have his name mocked as if he's not real? My goodness, what are we doing? The instrument is chilled to minus 213 degrees Celsius to allow for near-infrared observations. That wavelength is important for understanding star and planet formation, as well as observing very distant and very young galaxies. Lucifer has 3 interchangeable cameras for imaging, spectroscopy, and different resolutions. It has a large field of view and high-res capabilities which allow a wide range of observations. Lucifer is part of the Large Binocular Telescope, which happens to be right next to the Vatican Observatory on Mount Graham in Safford. The what observatory? The Vatican Observatory on Mount Graham in Safford, Arizona. That's right, the Vatican has an observatory in Arizona manned by Jesuit astronomers. Now its next-door neighbor is named for the devil. You can't make this stuff up. Scientists at 5 German universities designated the instrument, and they came up with the name according to Daniel Stolte, a spokesman from the University of Arizona. Stolte, who is German, explained that the team was tossing around names looking for an acronym that would fit all the technical terms, I'm sure. In Germany, they wouldn't have the same hesitation that Americans would have, since it's a very secular country, he said. I may be completely off, but that's just my hunch. For us Germans, Lucifer just sounds cool. Is the devil successful? The devil is most certainly successful. And this is where the world is. It's more historical than emotional. No matter your religion, the photos are certainly cool. So here we have this Large Binocular Telescope. Is this real? Is this just, or is Popular Science making this up? Let's look and see what Wikipedia says. The Large Binocular Telescope, the LBT, is an optical telescope for astronomy located on 10,700-foot Mount Graham in the Pinaleo Mountains of southeastern Arizona, United States. It is a part of the Mount Graham International Observatory. Lucy, L-U-C-I, just like Lucius, was originally Lucifer. Large Binocular Telescope Near-Infrared Spectroscopic Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research is the near-infrared instrument for the LBT. The name of the instrument was changed to Lucy in 2012. But what's in a name? What's in a name? So here we are as the world is playing name games and patty caking with the devil and getting incredibly familiar and comfortable with these names and these terms and what this being represents. We know that the time is short, and everything that the devil is designing to do to bring about a mindset in humanity to accept the Luciferian doctrine is absolutely happening. And I mean, think about the educational requirements to become a scientist at one of these universities. These are not stupid people, but they are most certainly deceived. What about the name above all names? Acts 4:10 through 12 says, "Be it known unto you all, and to all the people of Israel, that by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom ye crucified, whom God raised from the dead, even by him doth this man stand here before you whole. This is the stone which was set at naught of you builders, which has become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. This is the name that should be receiving prominence. And I hope that everyone that is listening to this will understand that we are at a war for the salvation of every single man, woman, and child on this earth, and that includes you. We must understand that the character assassination that started in heaven and the attempt to overthrow the government of heaven is being enacted here now, and there is a rise of this Luciferian order and the Ordo ab Chao agenda, the great work that these organizations are all a part of to bring about, is happening before our eyes. Romans 5 verse 1 and 2 says, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Those of us who are wrestling with these concepts of Christianity understand you already have peace through the Lord Jesus Christ with God. You don't have to try and earn his peace. You already have it. Jesus paid a penalty that we cannot pay for ourselves, and that gift is offered to us freely. Verse 2, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. It is by faith in the grace of God that we are saved. John 18:36, Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. Those people who are expecting to have some type of millennium where there's peace on earth for 1,000 years, that is not biblical at all. It's found nowhere in the Bible. But that is the belief system of all the mystery schools, and according to the Catholic Church, it is their fundamental belief system, because they believe that they will rule the earth for 1,000 years, and that will be the millennium. Hebrews 11, we read, in verse 8, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Why is it so hard for us here to imagine the things of God? Because the things of God are being eradicated from around us. Verse 13, these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Why? Because we don't want to be under this being's dominion. We are not sons of light in the Luciferian sense. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country, but now they desire a better country that is in heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. This is not our home. Revelation 3:12 says, him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my God. What's in a name? What's in a name? Well, in this name is salvation, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. What's in a name? This name is everything. It is salvation, it is peace, it is love, and we are to know and to have the name of Christ written on our foreheads. Revelation 2:17 says, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth it. Even we get new names when we go to heaven. Revelation 21:14 says, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. This is where a name means something. It would be eternally engraved in the foundations of heaven to be an apostle. Isn't that amazing? Revelation 21:27, and there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie. What was that woman that rides the beast? She is the harlot of the abominations of the earth. Those things will not be present there. God is not going to parley with evil forever. But they which are written in the Lamb's book of life, that's where we want to have our names written. That's where we want to be, is in the Lamb's book of life. Oh, that I could talk in the language of Canaan, then I could tell a little of the glory of the better world. I saw there were tables of stone, in which the names of the 144,000 were engraved in letters of gold. The 144,000 were all sealed and perfectly united. On their foreheads was written, God, New Jerusalem, and a glorious star containing Jesus' new name. Revelation 22:4, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. And that brings us to the end of part 5 of Snow Cones, Tentacles, and Elephants. What's in a name? Well, I'd like to have my name written in the books of heaven rather than anything that has to do with this earth, and I hope that is the case for you as well. Let's close with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, again we come before you, and we are so grateful for these truths. We are so grateful that no matter the semantics of the games that they play with names, that we are able to see through the lies. We ask, Lord, that you would give us discernment, that we may understand what is truth versus what is falsehood, because they use the same terminology. Lord, help us and teach us thy ways and live in us, Lord. Please forgive us of our sins, and we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.